Hi, this time I wanted to talk about descriptions and narrations in role-playing games, specifically how specific or how general they should be. This could be a bit of a complex subject, especially for those that have just started to play role-playing games, or those that are making the transition from the Mother May I conversation to actually playing a role-playing game. Remember to check out the description of this video for some useful tips and advice on tabletop role-playing games. Okay, when it comes to specific descriptions, actions that the characters take, non-player characters or player characters, they enrich the RPG experience. Things become a lot more detailed, perhaps a lot more realistic, when compared to using some vague or general narrations, descriptions, ideas when it comes to the task at hand. But there is a certain disadvantage to this. So even if you are handling every single encounter, every single side of the adventure or scenario in a very detailed way, sometimes things can slow down unnecessarily so, to the point that even the most inconsequential or not as important things in the scenario or adventure are highlighted, and sometimes that is not necessary, or it could even break the pace or the mood for the scenario or adventure. Because even in some books, films, comic books, video games, etc., they don't show everything that the character does. They do have some little mini time skips. It's like in real life, even if we were to consider some of the more simulationist role-playing games, if we compare them to things in real life, sometimes we carry out tasks in an autopilot sort of way because we are so accustomed, used to doing things, the more common things in our everyday lives. We are not putting all of our focus into it because our body does so in a very natural way. So there are many instances in tabletop role-playing games where such detail is not needed. But then we have the other extreme. We have general descriptions, and these can potentially reduce the impact or the excitement of each scene because you are handling these general or perhaps even vague descriptions of the tasks at hand. The flavor isn't brought forth. The thing that makes the adventure special isn't properly highlighted. So you do require that balance. You need to know when to apply more specific details, more specific descriptions of your actions and such, and when it's much better to handle things in a general way. Let me give you an example. Let's say that the characters arrive to this huge city. Any city could be in any setting, Waterdeep, Baldur's Gate. If you start to handle that moment with the characters describing every step of the way, how they are moving from the streets to the sidewalk and entering this house over here, it's going to take forever. If you try to mimic or simulate the entire walk through Baldur's Gate or Waterdeep or any city, it's going to take forever. And the adventure can feel quite aimless. If the characters are looking for a man with a red and blue twin serpent tattoo on his body, it's going to take forever if they say something like, I step out of the street and knock at the door of this house. And then this person opens the door and the game master says that, what do you want? And the player character starts to ask about the man with the tattoo, and it turns out that person doesn't know where that man is or hasn't seen that man at all. The door closes and now you say, I approach the next house and I knock on the door. You see, it's going to take forever and it's going to be so boring. So those levels of detail are not necessary. In fact, I would say that they are a detriment to the session. So it's all about the scope. In a larger scope, in a grand scope or a larger scale, it's much better to handle general descriptions. If the player characters have just arrived to this city and they are looking for this particular man, it's much better to say something like, I am going to inquire about the presence of the man with the tattoo by asking around in this block of houses. So now the game master can tell you that, oh, nobody could tell you anything of importance, or maybe you need to make a roll, and so the adventure proceeds without things becoming just like it loses the sense, the purpose of highlighting things, because there is nothing of importance to highlight in those moments. But if you are looking for this man with a tattoo, and you arrive at this caravan, you saw this caravan at the distance, and you go with your horses, you ride to approach the caravan, and now you start to ask about the man. Maybe it's just a caravan composed of six wagons or something. Then it's much more interesting to handle things on a more specific way. Like, just be very specific about it. The game master could say something like, as you approach the caravan, 2 guards move towards you. They haven't drawn their weapons yet, but they have their hands on their belts. So now you could say something like, I approach the guard on the right and I ask, my good man, we are looking for a certain individual with a tattoo that looks like, and so forth. So it's all about the scale. When it is better to be more specific about things on a smaller scale, in the case of the caravan, or if you are going into a huge area, a big town or a city, it's better to handle things in a more general description. But there are some other situations. What if the characters want to handle the investigation, the interaction with a particular site in a more general way? When is it permissible to do so for the sake of immersion and roleplay? I would say that if you have already explored a place, let's say that the characters are escaping from this alien menace. It's a sci-fi game and they are being chased around by this horde of xenomorph type of aliens, and they are in this planetoid and they saw this building in the distance, this structure. They want to take a refuge inside there, or perhaps prepare it as a sort of safe house. If you are just about to enter this building, if you have never been there, or if you have been there but after many violent changes in the setting, some things could have happened in that building, then it's much better to be a bit more specific. You can start handling things in true roleplay fashion, in more specific ways, by saying, I pull out my rifle, I approach the front entrance as carefully as possible, making as little noise as possible, and I lean against the wall, and I motion Jimmy to come forth and knock on the door. At the first sign of trouble, I am going to enter the house from the side, and I'm going to shoot any hostiles or something like that. That's a bit more specific, but if you are saying something like, I enter the building and secure all of the rooms and make sure that no one is inside, not only are you setting yourself up for the game master to put some nasty surprises out of his bag of tricks, you are also killing the description. Those moments are worthy to be highlighted. So when it comes to sites that you have not explored yet, it's much better to be specific, carry out the roleplay, the descriptions, the narrations in a step-by-step sort of way. But if you have already secured the building, you went inside, room by room, you saw that everything is clear, then I think it's perfectly permissible that after that you're going to say something like, I go through all of the different floors of the building, I start to secure all of the windows and doors, I start to mount this couple of miniguns that we obtained from the last mission. I'm going to put one in the front window, another one in the side. That's a general way of describing what your character is doing. And because you have already secured the building, there are no nasty surprises. At least in most cases, it's perfectly safe to handle those descriptions in a general way. Another situation. Let's say that you're playing in a sandbox or like a hex crawl sort of scenario. You are looking for... The party of adventurers are treasure hunters, and you are looking for, obviously, treasures. And you have heard these legends of this valley, where there are many ruins and sites of the ancient empire of Never Was. And you are looking for those ruins. So I think it's much better to handle things in a general way as you advance through the different areas, zones, the hexes. If you're handling like a hex scroll situation, you can move through the sandbox by giving a general approach. You could say something like, okay, we are heading northeast until we bump into the most notable landmark, or until we see some ruins. That's fine in my opinion. Much better than saying something like, I start to walk until I approach the closest tree possible. You want to go for a more general approach. You want to follow the river, follow the road, move towards those hills. That's because of the scale. It's more of a grander scale. You have this huge valley, and there are potentially ruins dotting the landscape. So general descriptions work best. So I just wanted to share my thoughts on that, on the general and specific nature of some descriptions and narrations, what your character is attempting to do. When you are handling, like I said, a grander scale, it's much better to go for general descriptions. Another rule of thumb could be, if the game master is handling a general description of things, you have arrived at the town of who knows what, the houses all have red roofs, you can see some establishments in the northwest, probably some stores, perhaps an inn. If he's going to handle things like that, it's perfectly normal for you to handle general descriptions of things, because you are being given a general description of the place, so you can generally describe your actions. But if the game master becomes very specific about his descriptions, just mentioning or painting the picture of a particular section, perhaps a single building of the entire zone, then it's much better to be a bit more specific, and perhaps later on move on to more general descriptions of your actions. So I want to know your thoughts on this. What do you prefer? Maybe some of you prefer to use general descriptions all the time. Maybe some of you prefer more specific details. So let me know about your thoughts in the comment section below. If you have any questions or comments, please let me know. And thank you so much for watching this video, and for those of you that are going the extra mile to support the channel. If anyone else wishes to further support the channel, the information on how to do that will be in the description below. Once again, thank you, and see you later.